If we could have our newest board member, Marissa, lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And I'm sorry, I should refer to you formally as Director Buss, so thank you. Roll call, please.
Director Hopper.
Yes.
Director Lang.
Here.
Director Cussworth.
Here.
Director Nichols.
Yes.
Director Buss.
Yes.
Thank you very much. In just a moment, we are going to have a special presentation, which I'm really looking forward to, but just it looks like most of you already gotten the word that if there's something you wish to speak on this evening, please make sure that you have filled out one of the blue speaker cards, which are available on the table back there. If you're dialing in via Zoom and would like to speak during public comments or our public hearing, apparently there is a raise hand icon on your Zoom screen, and just raise your hand and we'll make sure that you get connected properly. When it's your turn to speak, if you're on Zoom, remember to unmute and turn on your camera so we can see your smiling face, and then we'll be ready to go. So with that, I'm really excited tonight. One of my favorite programs and units in the entire district, and one that hopefully most of you are already aware of, but we're going to have a presentation by Devin on our Therapeutics Unit and Inclusion Program. Devin, take it away.
Hello, thank you so much for letting me have the opportunity to be here. Are you able to put it as a slideshow? Oh, awesome. Thank you so much. So as most of you know, my name is Devin Herbert, the Recreation Supervisor of the Therapeutic Recreation Unit. And here with me tonight is Corinne Rakowski. Today is her 3 months fulfilling the position as Recreation Coordinator. We're excited to have her back. She had always been in a part-time position as a camp director, recreation leader, and so forth. And now she's fulfilling a full-time position. So as so as many of you have known, Cecilia Laufenberg, she created such this amazing community for the therapeutic recreation families and created amazing programs and a great unit. She retired a couple years ago, and a couple months later, COVID hit and we had to shut down and create new programs, but it also allowed us to create changes and revamp programs and look at things a different way. So tonight is the Therapeutic Recreation Unit after COVID. So in a nutshell, we serve individuals with disabilities of all ages. We don't require a diagnosis. So we just let families know that if they feel that they benefit from the programs, they're more than welcome to register. Our offices are based out of Old Meadows Community Center. However, the programs truly are all over the community. So for example, we have a tennis program at Triumpho. We have a swim team at the CLU pool. We have volleyball and basketball at Borchard Community Center. We're at the Crowley House in Thousand Oaks for after school. So we're really all over the place. And then Old Meadows Community Center is also the home of the Dreamcatcher Playground. So this playground is designed to meet, just kind of touch base on all the senses of all individuals. So we have a lot of musical instruments. We have a calming area where if the playground is overstimulating or overwhelming, they can hide in little cocoons or even lay down on hammocks. And then we also oversee inclusion. So if anyone wants to register for any programs within the district, they can register for them, click on a box, and it automatically emails me, letting me know to reach out to the family and to work with them, how we can support them in the programs that they wish to register for. So the therapeutic recreation staff it's truly the meat and potatoes of the unit. The staff is, the families really trust them, and it's the first faces that they see. A lot of individuals come to our programs, they don't have awareness of fear or risks or safety concerns, or they may have seizures. And so they have to really trust the staff to be able to be comfortable and leave them in our programs. So we are a small team, but we're very, very mighty and do a lot. So it's amazing what the staff do. And then another thing to point out is that a lot of local Parks and Rec reach out to me, or a lot of local agencies reach out to me and ask me, how do you run successful programs? What do you do? What's different? And I let them know that truly our unit is really successful because it's led by 2 certified recreation therapists, meaning that we go to school with a background and learn this. We have to get a lot of volunteer experience. And then we also take a state and national exam to be certified as a recreation therapist. And then we have to do continuing education units every year to keep it up. So philosophies. So first, our safety and service come first. Again, it's scary leaving a child with special needs in the hands of other people in the community or taking them out into the community. We are not just person-centered, we're also family-oriented. So we're not just serving the individuals that come to the programs. The parents really like a lot of information and feel welcomed and supported too. We're responsive to their needs. The quality is always consistent. Again, the staff many of the staff have been with us for years. They're in it because we feel we have genuine relationships with our families and with the individuals, and it means a lot. So we're just not there just to provide a program, we're in it together and work with them. They always know the expectations are met. We're constant and open communication. Again, the certified recreation therapists, we're aware of supports and adaptations that are needed. And lastly, the cost of programs. So they know that if a family wanted to register for a soccer program, they're going to pay the same price as any other family would in the park district. However, we do know that the therapeutic recreation unit sometimes has to put in supports or adaptations or lower ratios, which then we know that it is tax supported a little bit to run these programs. So in a nutshell, these are just a couple of the offerings that we offer. The youth, we offer camps. Sports trainings are more skill development oriented at this age. We do an autism field day every year. We do playground play dates. So a lot of these are addressing sensory issues, social skills, behavioral learning, and gross and fine and gross motor development. I wanted to highlight inclusion because the youth programs are our feeder system into our teens and adult programs. And so our youth programs are dwindling a little bit. That's because we're seeing more and more inclusion these days. And so here it's an awesome picture because here I'm observing a preschool program at Caneo Community Center. And you don't know who I am observing in this because it's very inclusive. And we're able to support them and work with the instructors to make it successful for everybody. And then our teens, we also offer camps. It's more based learning independent living skills. And then we're also doing programming at Crowley House after school, special events, cooking classes. We have a cooking class right now where they cook a part of their family's dinner and take it home and get to share it with their family and be proud of what they made and be contributing to their family. And then sports trainings move more into team oriented. I wanted to highlight the Crowley House and the use of it of learning independent living skills. So if you haven't been to the Crowley House, it's really, really cool. We kind of revamped the downstairs, and it's such a really neat opportunity for them to come after school and feel like they're hanging out at their friend's house and have that opportunity. And they can make a light snack, they can play games, they can walk to Baskin Robbins, and just as if you were to go to a friend's house after school in high school and just hang out. And they also clean the house too.
Mhm.
All right, and then we also serve adults. So we do weekly programs such as art classes. We do a lot of community integration, going bowling nights, dinner and movies. This is a train trip to Santa Barbara. We go to the Dodger game. And then cooking. So this one is different for the teens and adults, where they actually cook a whole entire meal together, and then they sit down and eat it together and talk about what their favorites are, what they like, and what didn't turn out well. And then sports training. So we offer tons of different sports. This one is our bowling team in Camarillo. A mother came in last week and she was really stressed because registration was coming up, and she has a meeting every Monday morning that conflicts with registration. And she was stressed about registration and how she chose her work meeting last session, and her daughter was placed on a lot of wait lists. So she didn't let me speak for a while and was talking about how it impacted her family and her daughter getting put on wait lists for a lot of these programs. And so after I talked to her about registration and she got into the classes that were a priority to her, I asked her if she can send me a quick email about the things that she said that I can include to this presentation tonight. I am so grateful for the wide variety of enriched classes you offer for my special needs daughter. Her participation in bowling, Crowley House, winter camps, movie night, etc., has transformed my daughter from feeling isolated and lonely to the one where it is included in society and has developed friendships. She is so excited to participate in activities, and your high-quality staff just provide the ideal role model. Being new to the area and recently relocated, I was so afraid my daughter would have trouble adjusting and I would not be able to find activities for her. However, her life is now filled with healthy, exciting activities that keep her involved in learning. Thank you for all that you do. And then another parent spoke about our programs, freedom. So many of the special needs population spend hours every week in structured therapy, tutoring, and other growth activities. The Friday and Saturday night programs allow them to enjoy the weekend unencumbered by demands and expectations. And here's a fun picture from Silver Soleil Ball, just the boys, showing their personalities and being comfortable in our programs. And unfortunately, we do have challenges. So some current challenges that we're seeing is staffing. So we're definitely not getting applicants applying for the positions. And if we do, we're getting a lot of people that do not have experience working with special needs. So it just the training and the longer it takes them to feel comfortable to lead and be comfortable in programs. Youth programming, like I said, youth programming, we are seeing an increase in inclusion instead of our youth programs, which are our feeder system. Volunteers impact our programs greatly. They help with our ratios, offering more social interaction and the quality of the programs. And during COVID, they found other ways to volunteer that were not hands-on. So we had seen a decrease in volunteers inside our programs. And then meeting the community wants and needs. So basically, we have programs that have been developed. They've been going great, but often the community wants more and more and more. And so keeping up with that is challenging sometimes. And then inclusion and independent contractors. So working with a lot of independent contractors in how to include individuals with disabilities in their programs that is not a burden or just providing challenging situations. So and working a lot with independent contractors and educating them how to be more inclusive and provide adaptations. So how are we tackling some of those challenges? So this is Grayson. She came to us as a volunteer and she loved and felt safe and comfortable volunteering in our program. So this is hers, one of our summer camps. And then she helped out at our Silver Soleil Ball and our therapeutic horseback riding in the summer. Unfortunately, she passed away, and her family created the Grayson R. Wolpert Foundation that supports some of our programs and volunteers in the therapeutics unit. And so we now will have a college scholarship that individuals can apply if they have volunteer hours in the therapeutic recreation unit. So hoping to increase volunteers through that. And this is an example of a program, CTFE, which I hope everyone's going to be seeing the Descendants at the end of February. We're very excited. But this is an amazing program. However, we are seeing some challenges that we are looking at the program to just revamp it in different ways and to continue it be successful. Also, Tri-Counties Regional Center vendorization. So all individuals with special needs are regional center clients or consumers, and they announced that they will be paying for social recreation, their state government funding. And so we are in the process of becoming vendors with Regional Center, and they will be paying for social recreation classes for all individuals that are Regional Center clients. So that includes inclusion as well. And lastly, we're excited about some new partnerships. So Train Goat Gains, they will be doing a in-person yoga class in the spring. The Jan's Marketplace, it's not new to the district, but new to the therapeutic unit, where we are excited that we were able to utilize some space for summer camps last summer. And we're excited that we are also working with a local kinesiologist to offer additional youth swim, a youth swim team. And that's it. Does anyone have any questions?
Devin, thank you so much. Questions or comments? Yes.
Thank you.
You really do such a wonderful job. It touches my heart. And being a teacher, I've worked with many parents and I've had many special needs children in my class. And I was so glad you said you work with the family, because the parents want their children to achieve to the greatest of their possibility, just as every parent does. They want their children to have friends. They want their children to be involved. And that's so difficult oftentimes for children with special needs, because they're not the ones that usually the other children in the class are asking over to birthday parties and asking over for sleepovers. So it's so nice to have something where they can go hang out, where they can feel like kids, where they can do things. I have to say that your staff has an overabundance of patience and love. Because since I have worked with special needs children just on a limited basis in my classroom, I can see the amount of patience and love that you need to have and bring to this special community. So we are so very, very grateful to have you and all of your creativity and all of your patience and all of your love, making CRPD continually be making Canal Valley a better place to live. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh,
Director
one
Nichols.
other thing.
Oh,
Sorry, I mean,
Go right ahead, Director Peskowitz.
I wanted to say the Dreamcatcher or Playcatcher playground, that's good for everybody.
It is, yes.
Thank you. That is a wonderful playground, and
Mhm.
we need more of that sort of playground in all of them to be entertaining the senses for everyone. So thank
Agreed.
you for being pioneers in that.
Yes, I agree.
Now, Director Nichols.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for the refresher course and also the update. I mean, it's one of those programs that we know exists, and it does such a wonderful outreach to our community. I know I've actually referred a couple of folks to you that have contacted me. It's just nice to be able to say, yes, we can do that. Just here's the person to contact rather than, oh, we don't have that. But I think it's just a good example of one of these kind of niche programs that the Park District provides.
Yeah.
That nobody else does. And you think oh, just out there playing soccer or learning how to shoot basketball, but there's so much more to the park district, and you really are a shining example, you and your whole program. I know get a lot of recognition throughout that. So thank you for what you do. And again, thank you for helping our families that don't always get the necessary attention that they deserve, but thank you for that.
Thank you guys for your support.
Yes, Director Lang.
Yes, Devin, I would echo that. You do a fabulous job. Cecilia Laufenberg had big shoes, and you're filling them very well. And I'm glad you mentioned her because she was both innovative, creative, and brought so much to the programs that people wouldn't have been aware of if it wasn't for Cecilia, because I was involved in a number of award ceremonies, throughout Southern California, where she received these recognition awards of recognition. So, and you have continued it. But one of the items you mentioned was staffing, and we know the impact COVID has had on all aspects of staffing. So is therapeutic, these specialties, more difficult or about the same as the other?
No, so I mean, the part-time staff are just general recreation leaders and recreation specialists, all the, the same hiring process as all other community centers. We do try to look for individuals that do have some experience working with special needs. But if anything, we're not getting applicants, maybe because people aren't familiar working with special needs, so they're just not applying to the jobs. And nervous and not know if they are fit for it.
A comment, the Director Nichols mentioned that, some individuals, families with needs go to their park district or wherever, and these programs don't exist. And in general, off the top of your head, how many similar therapeutic programs like this are in our Eastern Ventura County?
So the only Oxnard has a great Oxnard Special Populations program. So they offer some sports and some crafts. It's not as extensive, where I don't think that they have any programs where it's drop off. It's all parent based. And then Rancho Simi has a couple alternative recreation programs, some sports and a couple community integration, but not as extensive as CRPD's.
Okay. Again, thank you very much. You're you and your staff are very much appreciated.
Thank you.
Director Buss.
Yes, I want to say thank you so much for everything that you do. And my husband and I had an amazing time at the Starlight Ball. And my children were exposed to the LEAP program through the school district. And one of their closest friends is a special needs child, which is amazing because I think that it teaches them compassion and empathy at such a young age. And it's really important so that then throughout their lives, now it's their really good friend, not their special needs friend, which is so important in this community. So I really appreciate everything you do. Thank you.
Devin, what you and your massive staff are able to accomplish for so many individuals in our community, from the children, the teens, the adults, such a large group of people that you're working with. I'm always amazed by what it is you and your team are able to do. So thank you so much. Director Buss mentioned the Starlight Ball. It's always one of my favorite events, and glad that we were able to do it indoors this year rather than outdoors like the year before. It's a lot more comfortable that way. And also got to see the revamped teen center. You ran quickly, you threw out the initials. Maybe people weren't aware what the Theater for All program is.
Yes, Caneo Theater for Everyone. So it's an inclusive theater production. And so Descendants will be in February, at the end of February, if anyone wants to see an inclusive theater production.
Great. I'm looking forward to that. So again, thanks to you and everyone on your staff and the volunteers for the great job that you do for our community. Hopefully we can solve some of those challenges that you have to make it a little bit easier for all of you. So thank you, Devin.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay, next item on the agenda is items from the public. I have one speaker card that was not, I believe it's not associated with item 7 on the agenda. Carol Neerman.
Good evening. I'm back to talk about the Caneo Senior Volunteer Program, Busy Bees Craft Group specifically, and the bullying and mobbing that's been going on there, and the lack of leadership within the CSVP program and also the Global Center. I had mentioned in other meetings that I, as the leader of that group, I had tried to make some changes with some of the bullying behavior that was happening there that were driving off a lot of the new members. The other problem we had is we had some of the participants who were stealing yarn. Now, some people might think this is kind of trivial because most of the yarn probably comes like from when your grandmother has to go to a nursing home and you clean out the garage. But there were other piles of yarn that were purchased specifically for the group for specific projects. And so I just think it's prudent that if you're going to go and ask somebody to donate either money or yarn to a project with a specific outcome, that it should go to that outcome. It shouldn't go to somebody to work on their own personal projects. And the problem with having volunteers in the group who are also working on their personal projects made it very difficult to get a handle on what was actually going on with a lot of the volunteers who were working on their personal projects and taking the chairs of the actual volunteers. So that's what we were trying to fix. One person, Pam, who was taking the yarn, we finally had to, in another meeting outside, I said, you know, we're really talking about you. You need to change your behavior. And I honestly thought at that time, because we were friends, that she would just like kind of quit doing it, or I don't know, because there's lots of free yarn. But what happened is that she just screamed at the top of her lungs, had never coming back, and she ran out the door. And 2 days later, she was back with a vengeance, with a literal vengeance. And she started slamming my work, my knitting expertise, the leadership. She was spreading lies about me. She was spreading lies about my family. She got her friends to start lying about me and all these other activities. And so soon I was the one being accused of stealing yarn and having nothing to show for it. And so I'm just trying to fix this and just be a good steward of your resources. And I'm being accused of doing that. And I just think it's kind of ludicrous that anyone would say that I'm have nothing to show for it. Maybe I stole the yarn, but I would certainly have something to show for it. Everybody who knows me knows that I'm a big knitter, and of course I have something to show for it. So these lies were just like kind of ridiculous. And this went on for years. It hadn't really been fixed. At the time when this happened, there wasn't really a leader of CSVP, and then Rick Tanaka came in, and Rick Tanaka tried to fix both issues. He tried to fix the bullying by the members of the group and the assigned seat problem that I had talked about, and also tried to fix the yarn. But somewhere along the way, he just kind of decided he wasn't going to work on the yarn thing, even though I was being hassled. There are 4 craft groups, and eventually the lies about me spread to all of the other 4 groups. I wasn't a leader of those groups. I was just the leader of one. And some leaders were kind of sympathetic to what was going on. I mean, because this is something that a lot of people knew about. And the person who had done this would actually been banned from one of the other yarn cabinets. She wasn't allowed to even touch the yarn because I don't know, I wasn't part of that. But others were really angry at me, like it was my fault that this kind of disruption was happening in their groups too. So it was sort of like, you know, I was being blamed for all of this when all I was trying to do was to fix things. And I didn't really feel like I was getting the support from the CSVP leadership. One, because we didn't have anybody and they hadn't done anything for years. And also Rick Tanaka was new. But, you know, eventually I had this meeting with him after oh, I can't remember her name now. I'll have to look that up. I had gone around him really, because I just wasn't getting what I thought should be done. And I had a meeting with him, and it just like, it astounded me. I mean, I don't know how some of these people get through their day. He says, well, Carol, you know, you say A and I talk to them and they say B, so you're wrong. And I'm thinking, well, they're lying. And this went on like for, you know, 10 years. So the problem really didn't go away. It got worse. Pam was not allowed in the yarn cabinet in the Wednesday group, but when the leader of the Wednesday group wasn't there, she would still go into the yarn cabinet. And she would, then she complained that I was bothering people who were anywhere near the yarn cabinet. And then there was also this thing that they did where she would get yarn supposedly for someone else, and then that person would hand it off to her in the Tuesday group. And there was also some sort of thing that I just kind of stumbled on accidentally, having to do with a few people who were volunteering at the boutique. And so this was still going on. And I just, you know, I just, well, there's
Carol, I hate to interrupt you in mid-thought like that, but we do have a lot of other people who are going to be speaking later on. Our staff is aware of the issues and the concerns that you brought up, and certainly follow up where it's necessary. So thank you very much for your time.
Well, thank you for listening.
Okay, next item on the agenda, item 5, approval of the agenda. I will entertain a motion. Yes, Director Cusworth.
I move that we approve the agenda.
Thank you.
I'll second that.
We have motion of second. Any discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Item 6, consent calendar. A, approval of minutes. B, approval of warrants. I'll entertain a motion on this item.
Okay.
Director Cusworth.
I move that we approve the consent calendar.
Thank you.
I'll second that.
Second from Director Nichols. Any questions or comments? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Item 7, deferred matters. We're going to open the public hearing on the issue of districting, changing the Park District elections into divisions. So I'm going to turn it briefly over to General Manager.
Yes, thank you, Chair Huffer, members of the board. We're together for our 5th of 5 planned meetings to go over the transition from at-large to by division director elections for the CRPD board. So many of you I see in the audience have been here for some of that process, if not all of it. We are I'm going to kind of lay the framework, because this is supposed to be the the decision making meeting, although I will just say, not to let folks off the hook, the actual 90 days runs on February 6th, I believe. So, but we are here tonight to make a decision if we can. We're going to have our consultants provide the overview that they had been providing and any additional information about the new maps. We're going to ask the attorney to kind of set the stage for the process that we're involved in as a reminder of where we're at. We're gonna take comments from the public. And we've all been doing that process. The board members will have an opportunity to ask a few follow-up questions after that. Then we'll be ideally going to begin the process of winnowing down the multiple maps we have to sort of the priority maps. So that's what's in store. I know we have people in the audience and people on Zoom. I believe we were going to go through audience first and then Zoom. Yes. So if you're on Zoom hoping to make a remark, you're going to be asked to put up your hand when we get to the public comment portion so the staff can call on you. I think I covered everything. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Justin Levitt.
All right.
From NDC.
Thank you, President Huffer, members of the board, members of the community who are here tonight and watching on Zoom. It's a pleasure to be back here, and let's just pull the presentation up. So just to kind of recap, because this is our final meeting, the process that we started to transition from our at-large system where all voters elect all members of the board to a by division system where each resident will live in one of 5 equally populated divisions and vote directly for a representative from that division who must live within that division, really began in the fall. We had our first hearings in November and early December. We released draft maps prior to the holidays. We had our first meeting on the original draft maps back on December 15th. We came back with new additional draft maps in January 5th, 2 weeks ago, and we have new draft maps again as we're working toward the final map to present to you tonight. This is the first opportunity the board has to really approve a final map. And so hopefully we can begin the process or complete the process of narrowing it down to the best map possible for the next decade. It's important to keep in mind that these districts or divisions will only be used through the 2030 election. Following the 2030 census, we will get new updated census data, and the district will have to revisit the boundaries. It may be the case that the division lines stay the same. It may be the case that the board at that point in time chooses to make changes, and every 10 years following the census, the board will have another opportunity to revisit the district or division lines. Our criteria that we used in the process for drawing the maps also serve as part of our evaluation process. For example, all the maps we have to show you tonight, we believe comply with federal laws. They all are within that 10% deviation. Race and ethnicity is not the primary criterion for the draft maps that we're looking at tonight, although protected class communities were part of the discussion and will serve as part of the discussion when we compare the draft maps tonight and moving forward. Where we really want to make sure that we focus the conversation in is evaluating it both with respect to that first column, but even more in the second column, particularly communities of interest. Which map does the best job of keeping neighborhoods and communities that should be kept together in the same division? Which one does the best job at satisfying the compactness and contiguity requirements, keeping lines easy for voters to understand, perhaps by following clear-cut, visible boundaries, natural and man-made boundaries. Other factors we can consider include respecting the voters' choices, the principle that the voters of the district have elected a board and that it should be up to the board to decide whether board members continue rather than depend on the map, and planning for future population growth. Although I know in the last decade, the school district found that its division lines or trustee area lines, as they call them, were still within the population balance, even switching from the 2010 to 2020 census information. So not one we overemphasize in terms of population growth. When we look at these draft maps, please keep in mind, if you want to see these in more detail, we've had the interactive web viewer available since December. On the interactive web viewer, you can zoom in, search for addresses. You can turn on maps next to each other to compare and see the differences between them. Really is a great tool for diving into the weeds when looking at the districts. We'll briefly go through all the maps. As requested at the last board meeting, we did remove the schools, and all the dots you see here are the locations of the different parks. At this Zoom, it's not possible to show all the names of those parks, but we have put the dots on here so we can visually see where they are. I won't spend too much time recapping each of the older maps because we have a lot of maps to get through tonight. But I will just provide a brief summary of each one as we look forward, and if the board or community has questions, I'm happy to address them. I'll just note that on each of the maps, we've put a suggested sequence. You might note that some of these have more than one potential election year. Basically, the board has to put the appropriate number of seats up for election, 3 seats in 2024, and 2 in 2024 and 3 in 2026. But it's up to the board to decide which seats are up in which election year. Keep in mind that this transition to divisions is a rollout process that takes place over the next 2 election cycles. Board members that were elected at large continue to serve at large until the end of their term, at which point they may run for office or not. So our suggested sequence may have some options, and it will be up to the board to decide as part of their adoption of a map, which seats are up in which election years. Just to start with map 101, this map is the school district map drawn into our parks or rec and park district. It has a 3% deviation, and I guess we could say it's just the school district map drawn into our division. Map 102 also has a 3% deviation. This was one of our original concepts, a freeway focused Division 3 that really kind of follows the 101 freeway through the city. And as well, and the other divisions as well, 1 and 2 follow the 23 freeway, and 4 and 5 have sections along the 101 as well. Maps 103 and 104 were our look at whether it was feasible to divide each of the current board members up into separate divisions. Maps 104, 103 had a 4% deviation and a 1.8 deviation in map 104. Map 10 and now the map 105 came from a request from our manager to see if whether it was possible to divide Conejo Creek Park up between 3 divisions. And so both maps 105 and 106 put the equestrian park in Division 1, put Conejo Creek Park North in Division 2, and the southern portion of Conejo Creek Park in Division 3. And maps 105 and 106 explored 2 different ways of dividing Conejo Creek Park between the 3 divisions. Those were the 6 maps we had to present in December. Since the December hearing, we received additional maps. Map 107 came from one of our residents, and it was an attempt to look at how could you maximize the Latino population in Division 3. Of all of the maps in terms of prioritizing race, this is probably the riskiest because it doesn't follow all the major roads or doesn't have cleanest boundaries. And so NDC worked with the submitter to create map 107B that cleaned that up. And so, for example, between divisions 2 and 3, Division 3 crosses a major road just to grab a block or 2 north of it. Division 107B takes it down to that major road, creating that clear-cut boundary. That's also why the division is a little bit higher, or deviation is a little bit higher in 107B, because it really is an attempt to balance more of the criteria rather than just achieve the lowest deviation possible. Map 109 was our attempt at our first attempt at working at trying to create a compromise or a map that blended a lot of the different concepts together. We wanted to take Division 3 back to a more freeway focused division, but also make it more compact at the same time, really emphasizing that central area at the intersection of the 23 and 101 freeways. Based on 109, Director Cussworth had requested we make some revisions to it. 109B was our first attempt at trying to implement those revisions. Yeah. So this was our first attempt at doing it. It didn't achieve exactly what Director Cusworth had intended. And so over the next couple of days, we made additional maps in order to try to achieve that. 109C came from a community member request from Betsy Connolly, who took 109B and made some changes to it, which we drew in for her. The map that we then came up with Director Cusworth was 109D, which is this map we have here. What all of these maps do is they take Division 3 east or westward along the 101 freeway out to Rancho Conejo Boulevard. And they take Division 3 a little bit out of the area, just kind of northeast of the intersection of the 101 and 23 freeway, trying to pare that down a little bit. Map 109D removes the Westlake apartments from that division and puts them into Division 2 in order to make that a little bit more compact and logical following the community boundaries. At our last hearing, we also heard some comments from one of the presidents of the Westwood or Westlake, one of the homeowners associations in the Westlake area, about the importance of keeping Westlake and Newbury Park in separate trustee areas. And so map 110 came out of an attempt to look at doing that. In particular, we simply used the Division 3 from 109B, but really used that open space area to divide Division 2 and Division 5 in the south end of the district. And we see Division 2 keeps most of the Westlake community, other than the apartments, in Division 2, and most of Newbury Park, as much as possible, is in Division 5. Parts of Newbury Park are just too large. It's too large of an area to be in one whole trustee area, or division. So part of that's in Division 4 and Division 3. And that's really just for population balancing reasons. We also had, working with another one of our directors, map 111C. This is another version of a map that does keep each trustee in a separate division. And this came out, and as you notice, there's a couple of maps that were not shown, that were not population balanced or otherwise did not fulfill the criteria. This was the map that we came up with that tried our best to meet the legal requirements of equal population and following the requirements of the Voting Rights Act. So of these maps, I'm happy to speak about any of them in detail. I would love to hear feedback on the different maps and be able to answer your questions about the lines and which ones, and provide any additional information that might help you make a decision tonight. Our hope is that we could make that final decision tonight, or at least at the end of the day, provide additional direction. We did receive a couple of maps after the deadline. We were not able to post them because we have a 7-day posting requirement. And so with only 2 weeks, that means that we had to make sure everything got posted last Thursday. Any requests for additional changes would require another 7-day posting window to make sure that the community has time to view them. And that's according to the California Voting Rights Act. So thank you very much for your time. I look forward to our conversation.
Thank you, Dr. Levitt. I will, if you stay at the podium for just a minute, if any of the board members have specific questions of Dr. Levitt, we'll entertain those questions now. And then I believe we're going to our attorneys. So any specific questions for Dr. Levitt? Okay, thank you. Don't go anywhere. I'm sure we'll be calling on you as time goes on.
All right, so now if Chris Skinnell, our attorney, is available and on Zoom, I don't know if he can be brought in. Hey.
Hi, good evening. It's nice to be here with you. I won't take long. I know we have a long evening of public hearing, but I just wanted to briefly make a few comments. I know that some of you saw that there was a letter received today or yesterday from the plaintiff's attorney who originally started this process with a letter several months ago. And I just wanted to briefly address a couple of the points there. First of all, there's at the very end, there's a suggestion that some of the maps being presented this evening are untimely. That is not the case. As Dr. Levitt noted, there's a 7-day requirement that all maps be published at least 7 days in advance. All of the maps that were presented to you this evening and are here for discussion were in fact published by January 12th, so at least 7 days ago. Also briefly, the suggestion in the letter that maps 103 and 104 are illegal because they consider where the current members of the board live is, in our view, incorrect. The United States Supreme Court, the California State Supreme Court, the California State Courts of Appeal have all said that it is a permissible and okay thing to consider and to take into account as part of the districting process. When the state has wanted to prohibit that, they've done so explicitly with respect to the state legislative and congressional districts. They have not done so with respect to special districts like CRPD. And finally, I just want to emphasize again what Dr. Levitt said. The focus really at this point, all of these maps comply with the Federal Voting Rights Act. They all comply with the California Voting Rights Act. So the focus this evening really ought to be on sort of the more traditional criteria such as compactness and contiguity and communities of interest, and really sort of hone in on those rather than focusing exclusively on the racial percentages and making that the predominant consideration. That's something we've talked about in the past and that Dr. Levitt has raised in prior presentations. So that pretty much wraps up my comments. I'm happy to answer questions, though. I'll be, watching here, and if things come up and people have questions, I'm happy to answer them then too.
Are there any board questions of Mr. Scannell? Okay, thank you, Chris. Stand by. We may have questions as the evening goes on.
Will do.
We are going to open up now for public comments on this item. We mentioned this already, but because we have 7 cards, I will ask that you try to keep your remarks somewhat brief, but we're not going to be running a timer on you unless you happen to go 15 or 20 or 30 minutes, then we might ask you to cut it back a little bit. Also, if a prior speaker has basically said the same thing that you were planning on saying, perhaps you could just agree, make some brief remarks and go from there. We will ask as I read your name, if you just go up to the podium, give us your name, please do speak into the microphone. It may need some adjusting. There are a couple of us, myself included, who are a little bit hard of hearing, so we'd like to be able to hear everything that you're saying for us. And if you're on Zoom, apparently we have 2 people right now who are on Zoom. After we have the public comments from our people in the room here, then we will call on our Zoom participants. We've already mentioned it, but when we get to that point in the public comments, if you just use the raise your hand icon in Zoom, that way we'll know to have you into our Zoom room appropriately. So with that, I will first call on Carol Shelton.
Let me adjust this because I'm short. Is that good? Is that volume good? Good evening. My name is Carol Shelton. My 3 children and I live in Thousand Oaks, and more specifically Division 3. I am the Vice President of Adelante Comunidad Conejo. This will be my 4th public comment on this topic. My involvement in the community allows me to be the Vice President of Adelante Comunidad Conejo and to be a part of or support the work of the following 5 organizations: Adelante Comunidad Conejo, Conejo Together, Buen Vecino, TO Livability Action Network, and the Autism Society of Ventura County. And we're asking that you choose a map for election by division that respects the Voting Rights Act by amplifying the voice of underrepresented groups while respecting geographic boundaries and communities of interest. Our working group has identified 5 key criteria which were assigned a point value to compare the maps objectively. You have this information. After this analysis, I support map 110 as the first choice, followed by 107B. My children and I have enjoyed living in Thousand Oaks in part because of Conejo Recreation and Park District. I am on the computer at 9 a.m. on registration day to sign up my son for classes. It is cutthroat, I will tell you. My daughter spent many summers volunteering for the day camps, and most recently I've been a faithful member of the Therapeutics Advisory Committee. My children and I signed the support document for map 110. This will mark the first time we are civically engaged together, and I'm very proud of this milestone. It is my hope that our family can vote together for a director for Division 3 that will live within the boundaries of map 110. It is very clear that the directors take great pride to serve the Conejo Recreation and Park District and truly care about this district. I know firsthand how hard it can be to realize that you can no longer serve with a group you are proud of and support. Thankfully, during the last meetings, many different opportunities to support CRPD were shared, attending public meetings like this, going to events, and more. It is my hope that as you debate which map to bring forward for a final vote, that you will honor your commitment to prevent potential litigation by immediately removing maps 103, 104, and 111 from consideration. I want to thank Jim Friedel and staff for ensuring they sent out emails as new information came forward in this process. Although slightly off topic, I would like to also ask that CRPD continue this practice by creating an email listserv that will allow interested parties to register in order to stay informed about CRPD meetings, just like Ventura County Board of Supervisors does. This way, folks can be informed and attend the public hearings as directors have suggested. A win-win in my eyes. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Carol. The next speaker will be Rosanna Gueron.
Good evening. My name is Rosanna Guerra, and I'm a 30-year resident of the city of Thousand Oaks. This is hopefully my last attempt at pleading to the board to select a map that is in keeping with the spirit and legal requirements outlined in the Voting Rights Act. I am here before you and the community to discuss 3 points that I believe have caused me concern over the course of this process. Number 1, the number of maps proposed. 14 maps have been proposed. An additional number was added after the meeting on Thursday, leaving little time for the community to be informed or to act in a judicial way. And I think that that's really important to understand that we are working families. And yes, it's 7 days, but it does take, there was a weekend involved, and it does take time to kind of analyze. And you've had all this time, and then at the last minute, you add in more maps. My second point is remarks made by a board member at the last meeting. I've been coming to these meetings because I'm a member of this community and I have a voice. I was left bewildered by the remarks of a board member questioning the authenticity of being present. I pay taxes and I don't need anyone's permission to be here if I haven't been at a meeting before. And number 3, and this is the most important, a letter from the law firm of Sheckman and Hughes stating that proposed maps for consideration 103, 104, and 111 are unlawful incumbent gerrymandering. And it's interesting that your law firm that's representing CRPD has taken out 111. Map 111 that was added was recently added and specifically designed to dilute Latino population by adding it to Westlake Village and Lake Sherwood, and in keeping to secure the current board member seats. My hope is that the board will do the right thing and select the best map that fits the growing underserved population, namely map 110. It passes the test as outlined in the Voting Rights Act and creates the possibility of equitable representation. I'm hoping that a decision will be made this evening and not delay this process, as I'm kind of hearing that undertone this evening. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next we hear from Sally Hibbets.
Good evening. My name is Sally Hibbets. I'm a resident of the Thousand Oaks area since 1972 in the Russell Park area. And tonight I represent the Thousand Oaks branch of the American Association of University Women, also known as AAUW-TO. My organization has for over 50 years provided continuous public service to this community, having members who are now elected officials at the federal, state, county, and local levels, including representatives on your own board for many years in the past. It is in this light that I read this letter, which you received earlier today. To the CRPD Board of Directors, Jim Friedel, General Manager. After further consideration and analysis of the additional maps proposed for creating new voting districts for the CRPD, the Executive Board of AAUW strongly endorses map number 110 with map 107B as our secondary option. Our organization has a long history of supporting equity in voting rights, and therefore these options more clearly coincide with our long-established public policy goals. We believe that map 110 best represents the geographic boundaries in Thousand Oaks, keeps the neighborhoods together, and has a higher concentration of multifamily housing. This map also keeps communities of interest together, giving them better opportunities to elect representatives who more clearly share their common interests. AAUW-TO is committed to improving opportunities, especially for those groups who often are marginalized by the usual power structure in our area. AAUW members have been participating in discussions and working with experts to analyze what is in the best interests of the community at large, as well as underrepresented groups. We believe strongly that all residents deserve an equal voice in our city's government. Maps 110 and 107B also incorporate the following concerns. They fit all necessary legal requirement. They strengthen representation for underserved communities. They uplift Spanish-speaking and bilingual households who use park services and programs. They also create divisions that make the most sense throughout the Conejo Valley. Thank you for requesting resident input in this very important process. We hope you will give our recommendations serious consideration. And it is signed Peggy Buckles, our local president of our branch. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sally. Our next speaker is Chase Rashid.
Thank you to the board. So I'm going to briefly address some things that were said at the last meeting. First of all, I've been involved in this city for years. I've been a member of the GPAC, which is the committee that helps plan the future general plan of the city of Thousand Oaks. And I've been with the Citizens Transportation Advisory Committee for 7 years. And I visited all 50 parks in this district. So the notion that I have not been involved is misinformation. And the other thing I wanted to address that was totally offensive was using the old trope that I had a Black friend, so I can't be biased. It's a dangerous old trope, should not be used. Absolutely shameful that that was used by a public official. Now, I know I'm part of a 1% in this community, and I see the jeers in the audience, but I'm going to tell you, I'm going to stand up for myself and other persons of color when it comes to things like that. Now, what I see on map 111C is disgraceful dilution of the Hispanic community, similar to what would be done, has been done on congressional maps in states like Georgia, Florida, Louisiana, Texas, Tennessee, and South Carolina. It's not acceptable. And I saw a lot of comments in the supplement saying that map 111C was respecting communities of interest. That was total lies and misinformation. And a lot of the comments looked like they were scripted from someone with a political agenda. And I think we all know who was doing that. I'm not going to say who it was, but very clearly, very political, because that map is a horrendous gerrymander that belongs in a trash can. And I'm just going to say it. I am just completely disgusted that someone would put up a map like that and try to play in our faces about that was fair. And the next thing I'm going to say is, this is not all about, electing a person of color to the board. It's about electing a person that can represent the interests of the communities of color around here. A white person could do that. Steve Cohen in Tennessee has represented Memphis for about 17 years. He's a white Jewish man. He's done that effectively. And I will say the issue with a lawsuit is very, very threatening to our community, because if CRP was to lose that, that money is going to have to be paid out of the general fund, I believe. And if that happens, that's going to take money away from our parks and recreation. So I please ask you not to pass a gerrymander. And I also ask you to be transparent about what director proposed that map, asked for that map to be drawn, because I asked staff where it came from and was told it came from a director. So thank you, and do the right thing.
Thank you, Chase. Next speaker will be Willie Lubka.
Good evening, Chair Huffer, Vice Chair Lang, Directors Cusworth, Nichols, and Buss, and General Manager Friedel. My name is Willie Lubka. My family and I have lived in Thousand Oaks since 2001, so 22 years. I'm getting ready to start playing softball again in one of your leagues, starting in February, unlike my friends in Minnesota. I know that the fields will be well cared for, the umpires will be well trained, the organization of the league will be well managed, and that CRPD will take care to protect my safety and that of my teammates and everyone involved. I'm so grateful for all of the resources and experiences CRPD provides to me and my family and our community, and what an astonishing example of that we had at the beginning of your meeting tonight with the therapeutics program. Absolutely great work. I understand that you guys didn't wake up one morning and say, hey, let's go to districts, but that you're doing it under pressure and the threat of a potentially costly litigation. I imagine that it may not be comfortable for all 5 of you elected directors. I do not wish for you to be uncomfortable. I respect the heart and soul you've put into getting elected and doing the work you do, and can understand that looking at a map where 2 of you would be in the same district, meaning only one can win, must be a little bit traumatic. But I'm really glad you're making this change. I think it's the right thing. I think it's beneficial to Conejo Recreation and Park District and to our whole community. And I hope you're pleased by the community involvement it has generated. That's good. The most important benefit is that you are supporting the fundamental rights guaranteed to California voters under the California Constitution and the Federal Voting Rights Act. By providing greater opportunities for communities of interest to elect candidates of their choice, your move to division elections is advancing the cause of democracy. a powerful, and many would say sacred value we hold. And I hope that outweighs any discomfort or consternation you have. I have studied all the draft maps in consultation with other community members. And in my estimation, maps number 110 and 107B are the best currently available options for dividing the community into 5 districts that meet all the necessary criteria. If you take a final vote tonight, I would urge you to adopt one of those 2 maps. But I also want to point out that each of those 2 best maps have flaws. The boundaries of map 107B's version of District 3 do not include a section of Warwick Avenue and St. Charles Drive, just a short ways from here, with many apartment dwellers who would be much more appropriately included with the rest of District 3. Map 110 attaches the Westlake Hills neighborhood, which I think was referred to earlier as the Westlake Apartments, but there are no apartments there. And that neighborhood is attached to District 3 way on the far east end. That area has a very different makeup than the rest of District 3 and has a lot more in common with that map's District 2. Map 110 also extends District 2 across the obvious boundary of the 23 freeway and strangely attaches a neighborhood east of the 23 between Jans Road, Moore Park Road, Avenida de los Arboles, and the 23 freeway onto District 2, the rest of which all lies east of the 23. That section west of the 23 has more in common with the contiguous neighborhood to the south of Jans and the rest of that map's District 3. It appears like that may be primarily geared toward protecting incumbents, which is a questionable basis for setting the boundaries. So if you don't vote tonight, my recommendation is correct the flaws in either map 107 or 110 and adopt the resulting map at your next meeting. Thank you all for your hard work and deliberations and for considering my views.
Thank you, Willie. Next speaker will be Betsy Connolly.
Hi, I'm Betsy Connolly. I am a resident of the Conejo Valley. I live in unincorporated Lynn Ranch. And I think I've lived here for 43 years. I was trying to total it up. Seems like a long time or a short time. But I'm here tonight because I'm part of the working committee that developed the criteria and assessment mechanism for looking at the 14 now more maps that have been submitted. We came to the conclusion while we were working on understanding the maps that it was pretty confusing and that it was hard to hold in one's head what the features were for each one of the maps that made a difference. So we did that work for ourselves. We thought it was useful and we shared it with you and we've shared it with the community. So I want to talk about the criteria that we developed. And I also want to say there are a lot of good maps for you to choose from. Although each of us may have our one particular map that we think is the best compromise, there are plenty of maps on this list that meet the criteria that that score well using the criteria that we developed. Those criteria are respects natural boundaries that separate communities of interest, such as Wildwood Park and Hidden Valley, for example. And Willie, the speaker before me, brought up, I think correctly, that sometimes those natural boundaries aren't a river or a freeway. They are things we know about because we live here. And they are neighborhoods that share very little in common financially, kinds of programs, the way they use the parks, share very little in common with other neighborhoods. And when we developed the criteria, we tried to keep that in mind. So here are the criteria that we used. A, respects natural boundaries that separate communities of interest such as Wildwood Park and Hidden Valley. B, creates a division with a higher concentration of Spanish-speaking Latino residents to enhance representation. C, creates a division that recognizes the multi-family housing community of interest. People who live in multi-family housing depend on their parks as backyards, as places for birthday parties and family gatherings in a way that those of us that have the luxury of a entertainment backyard like I do, don't have to have birthday parties and celebrations at the park. And I think that makes apartment dwellers who the city of Thousand Oaks have concentrated along the 101 and 23 freeway, a community of interest, an important community of interest. D, respects the community of interest made up of lower income, primarily Hispanic neighborhoods by keeping Las Casitas, Warwick, and Los Feliz neighborhoods together. Las Casitas is the area that Director Buss referenced at the last meeting, the area that Safe Passage focuses in on, which is south of Amgen on Hillcrest. Warwick is the original home of Safe Passage, the apartment 850 Warwick that Safe Passage rescued with a gang intervention. And Los Feliz is the area around Conejo Elementary where Adelante Comunidad Conejo focuses its services and its community marketplace. And so those are areas of town that anyone who is involved in the nonprofit world here in the city of Thousand Oaks, in the community of the Conejo Valley, is very familiar with. And I think you should respect them in the maps you choose. And then the last criteria that we put in here is respects voter preferences by limiting the number of current directors who lose their seats. So we acknowledged in our work that you were all elected. People chose you. They think, I know this because I was on the school board for 12 years, they think they own a little piece of you because of that. And they don't want to see the person they vote for leave the board. And so as sympathetic as I am, as Willie referenced, I'm actually more concerned about respecting the preferences of the voters in putting you here. And so we gave a pretty heavy point value to trying to preserve director seats. And that is our fifth criteria. So as you look at these maps, I am asking you to please choose a map that does more than just withstand a legal challenge. You can do better than that. You can choose a map that respects the community you serve and that puts the interests of the community before the priority of preserving a division for each current director. And as you go through the maps, that is my request to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Betsy. Our next speaker is Connie Gutierrez.
Hello, I'm Ty Gutierrez, and respecting, as you mentioned, Director Heffer, not reiterating things that I am in agreement with. I just want to start with some things that I am in agreement with, and then just give some short comments. So bear with me as I work through some really messy notes that I took along the way. So I'll start with posing a question. Why wouldn't we? So top of mind, why wouldn't we? So why wouldn't we prioritize underrepresented communities, as Carol mentioned? Why wouldn't we prioritize growing underserved populations, as Rosanna mentioned? And why wouldn't we take note of how inequitable the voting rights have been of these marginalized families in our area have been over, I don't know how many years, but probably more than I've been alive, as the AAVAW members collectively stated. In addition to that, and a little bit harder to mention, but totally in agreement with, as Chase mentioned, why wouldn't we elect someone of color for the first time? Why wouldn't we prioritize that? I think I've said it several times before, and I'm going to reiterate. That is my objective, standing in front of you before you today, being a contributing member as a business owner, as a mother, as a taxpayer, as a very socially awkward and internally shaking being in front of you, right? My first one was like, you guys aren't that scary. You aren't. Thank you for not being that scary. But why wouldn't we? Why wouldn't we prioritize that? 60 years we celebrated last year or this year. They tend to meld right now, sort of like 18 days into the new year. But why wouldn't we? I think we've all been the friend in the back pocket that people pull out, like, I can't be racist because I know so-and-so, or I did so-and-so with so-and-so, or I did something with so-and-so. I've been that friend. I've been that professional colleague. I've been the token. I've gotten paid for it. I've had to learn those lessons. And so that's hard to swallow as I stand before you. As a board that I respect, that I have come to love over the several years that I've been a parent, 9 whole years. 9 whole years. Okay, that's a moment. That was Chase. And then Betsy. Betsy laid out beautiful criteria, respects natural boundaries, not just in a topographic type of map way. Things that we know as Thousand Oaks residents. Things that Marissa knows, being someone who's very integrated and who lives where and why they choose to live there. This is where my writing gets really bad. Creates diverse. Oh, there were beautiful points, Betsy. I'm so sorry. But my handwriting got really bad. But there were 4 points. The last one that I'll reiterate and heavily paraphrase. Why wouldn't we do better than we had in the past in just saving seats for the people we've currently elected? As much as I was a voter for many of you. I think history, not to get like all philosophical, but like I think history and both the definition of insanity is if we want something to change or if we want something different to be kind of the current and present day reality is we have to do something different. And so the fact that we've not had to bother ourselves with race, or that we've not had to consider these things as we draw lines or as we consider programming, falls short of what I'm asking of my board today. Lastly, I think another personal comment, and I kind of hold myself accountable to being direct, because I don't take it lightly to be in front of you today, is that I want you to be uncomfortable. As much as Willie was like, I don't want you to be uncomfortable. I want you to be uncomfortable. I want you to really consider the after effects, the ripples, the domino effects of what you're deciding today. Gerrymandering from a law firm would be frightening to me. My background is in HR. I do a lot around diversity, equity, and inclusion, and that would be jolting. And I've not seen anyone really speak to the language outside of the lawyer, which is someone mentioned the first time we've heard of him or heard of from him today. That should be jolting to our board. Gerrymandering is not a term we should take lightly. That is decades old of like, we don't do that. We don't do that because it takes people's lives and puts them in a hierarchy, and it puts their contributions to our community in a hierarchy, and it neglects people and it underserves people and all of the other words we've decided that were the right terminology to talk around it. If we're going to talk about gerrymandering, we can talk about redlining. That's jolting. We're in Thousand Oaks, one of the most beautiful communities I have ever experienced. And I've lived from the East Coast to the West Coast. And I chose to raise my 9-year-old son from birth in this city because of our parks. Quite literally, that's not a campaign plug. That's not something I thought would be creative for my speaking opportunity. That is the truth. That is what it came down to when I had the opportunity to buy a home anywhere. Anywhere. Ask my realtor. Anywhere. Thank you so much for your time.
Connie, thank you. I believe we have 2 speakers online. Again, if you are dialing in via Zoom, please use the raised hand icon and bear with us a moment while we get through the technical details of connecting you up. We can see you, Rita. And I believe, can you hear us, Rita?
Yes, I can now. Thank you. Hi, my name is Rita Henry, and this has been quite an emotional meeting, I have to say. I'm a recently retired teacher of 45 years, and one of my jobs was to be a bilingual English and Spanish special ed teacher. And the programs you have in Thousand Oaks are incredible. I wish every city had the interest and the money to be able to do that. I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. And I've been following this situation for a while and talking to friends and colleagues who are from your area. And to keep it short, I want to reiterate what almost every speaker has said, that it's very important to not only do quality, to have quality, but quantity of support for the people of color and low income people. The services you have at the Department of Recs is fantastic, and you're developing those youngsters so they can grow up and be stable, satisfied, brave, realistic, loving adults. And you set by, you can lead with an example. So I really would support map 110 first. And if that is not possible, the 17B. I think you need to do what you're doing now and what you have been doing more in the recent past is remembering all the people in the communities, not just those who have the power and the money. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rita. Appreciate your calling in. We have one more online speaker. One?
Three more. He said
Three more.
Three more, yeah.
Okay.
So people join.
Again, if you're online, if you have just a little patience, we will get you connected.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Jackson.
Great. Thank you. My name is Jackson Piper. I'm a resident of unincorporated Newbury Park. I'll try not to be too long-winded about this, but I want to start off with a comment about the way we conceive of the maps. I want to start off saying that I don't think this is something that can be addressed at this point in this redistricting process, but I do believe it should be considered for the next one in about 7 years. So hopefully the idea can take off in that time. About 13 years ago, as an urban planning student, I learned about the work of the urban planner Kevin Lynch, and especially about his way of conceiving of the use of space called the Lynch diagram. And this is a fairly simple diagram that uses different shapes as components to help sort of map out the way a space is used. And that can be a park, a neighborhood, a city, basically anything. It consists, and I had to look this up because it's been, like I said, 13 years, of these 5 main components, which are paths, nodes, landmarks, edges, and districts. And looking at the maps that were provided, it's very clear to me that the way it was conceived is that the arterial streets, the collector streets, and of course the freeways are seen as edges in the community. They're the dividing lines between different districts and different neighborhoods. This is not, in terms of community building, a great thing because while the freeway is always going to be an edge wherever it goes through, because it's just hard to create a community that crosses those. Streets, arterial streets even should be conceived of as the connective tissue within our community, and neighborhoods should cross those and be able to connect with the other residences on the other side. So for the future, what I'm suggesting is, instead of conceiving of these streets as the boundary between one district or another, one neighborhood or another, that we start looking at rear and side property lines and moving our district boundaries where it is feasible through what would seem like neighborhoods, but where basically there's not much interaction between a house on one street and the house at the rear on the other. So we can start maybe more effectively dividing our community up for better representation. So that's hopefully makes sense to everyone, but that's my suggestion. Beyond that, I want to say that I agree with basically what everyone has said commenting here tonight. I'm heartened to see that the most gerrymandered map has been removed, and I want to say that when I see a gerrymandered map, either locally or nationally, maybe it's just because I'm cynical, but what that says to me is that the politician whose district that is does not have the confidence in their own abilities to govern effectively and to represent everyone that they should be representing. And so they've gamed the system in order to ensure that they can continue to hold their office. And, maybe that's not always the intent, but that's what it says to me is, this public servant, rather than trying to be inclusive of all of their potential constituents, has decided to pick which constituents will basically be there to elect them the next time around. So I definitely would like to see continued effort to avoid and prevent gerrymandering, both, in this setting, in the CRPD, and also throughout the rest of local politics as well. It's not a good thing. I think everyone here knows that. I'll just close by saying that I fully support the suggestions of Conejo Together, and I strongly encourage the top map prospects that they have highlighted to be considered in this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jackson. The next person online, again, if you'll have just a little patience, we will get you connected momentarily.
Hello, my name is Clint Foltz and I'm a resident of Thousand Oaks. I was born in Westlake Village back when there was actually a hospital there. I've spent more than 30 years living in the Conejo Valley, and I've been lucky to spend a lot of time in the many excellent parks here over the years. I'd like to thank CRPD staff for all that you have done over the years, and I'd also like to thank all of you all for making the effort to engage with the community for the new division-based community election system. After looking at all the maps, I believe map 110 is the best map for the community. As a renter living in multifamily housing on St. Charles Drive, I know it is important to keep the Latinx community together and give them the proper representation they deserve. Thank you, and thank you for your time.
Oh, thank you very much, Clint. Do we have another speaker? One more. Okay, again, a little patience and we will connect you shortly. Krista, oh, there you go. Okay, you're now unmuted.
Hi, my name is Krista Koch, and I would like to echo everything all the previous speakers have said. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Krista. Do we have any further speakers, or is that it? That's it. Okay. Thank you all who dialed in via Zoom. Thank you all very much for those of you who have come out here, for many of you multiple times. We do really appreciate that. Couple comments, then I'm going to get board discussion. I know that this is a process that the board didn't go into with great enthusiasm in terms of dividing in divisions. Quite honestly, we were, well, I won't use the term blackmail, but we were sort of put over a hard place that we either spent hundreds of thousands of dollars to fight this concept, or as we decided a couple of months ago, okay, we're going to do this. Now let's do the best job we possibly can. Okay, it's been a couple of months. We've had lots of meetings. We've heard from the public. We've heard from our experts. So it's time at this point, as representatives of a community of about 140,000 people, that we reach a decision tonight. What I'm going to ask each of the board members to do, and they've been informed of this ahead of time, is we're going to ask you to rank your top 3 maps, 1, 2, and 3. Once you have that down, we are not going to just say, okay, well, the map with the most points automatically wins. This is a starting process, more to winnow down the number of maps that we're working with to see if we can get to 3, 4 maps, something like that, that we can then have further discussion. So I'm going to ask each of the board members to write down their first, second, and third choices. Are we gathering that information or?
Yeah, we can either have you guys write it down, gather it, or you just go board member by board member and give us the number.
That's probably the easiest way. So,
and I didn't know if you wanted to give the board members any last opportunity to ask a question of anybody, or we're ready to do this process.
that's probably a good idea. If anybody has questions of either our attorney or our demographer, you're pointing at, oh, you're just trying to.
He's working the clock.
Oh. We can talk as long as we want.
Oh, he's trying to put a time limit on you.
Yeah, right. Okay, any questions that any of you have for our attorney or demographer? If not, then what I'm gonna do is work in order of not age, but seniority on the board, and I'm gonna ask Director Lang, if you could let us know what your first three choices are in order, and then what criteria you used for just your top selection.
Okay, I would like to have staff or somebody give us a final list, because I thought I heard some comments that some of the maps were no longer being considered, or
I can kind of speak to that. I think what people were referring to was maps that got a start, but then never were able to population balance or something. So it never actually became a map. Like I think 108, right? Met that fate of just was never born. Right. So all of the maps for your consideration are the maps in your packet tonight.
okay. Yes, what a challenge. And for someone who has been around for many years, who's invested in this community, who's contributed to this community, and stepping back, I hear that we should have 140,000 board members. Every board member having their own area, their own interests at heart and so forth, and we're going to have a wonderful rec and park district. Well, we all know we already have a wonderful rec and park district. One of the speakers, is Betsy Connolly, mentioned a particular program, Safe Passage. You don't know this, it's not something, but I was very instrumental in getting that even going from community members from Catholic Charities, started at that ground level and had meetings with a number of individuals from our community, past council members, chief of police, individual from Catholic Charities who brought that to my attention. And it materialized in what it is today, thanks to a retired chief of police, Tim Hagel from City of Thousand Oaks. A lot took place, happened since, prior to what it is today. So it's programs like that. We could go, I don't want to get into some of this stuff, but there are so many things that have taken place in our community that community didn't know about. They just enjoy everything that we offer and what we contribute and so forth. So to step back, and we also heard from some of the individuals that none of these maps are perfect. Someone's gonna have a difference of opinion. Their priorities are gonna be different from yours, from mine, theirs, people out on Zoom, et cetera. So we're not gonna get a whoopee, we got 100% for this map. That's not gonna happen. So there's gonna be, and even with the numbers that we throw out, we're gonna have differences of opinion. It's not gonna be 100% of what you personally want and see as right. This is a process, as mentioned. It was a tough decision. Our chair mentioned, you know, we kind of felt we've been pushed into a corner to do something that we don't think, you know, was overall a problem. And as a young kid who helped his dad fix things, cars, things, and motors, etc., I became an electronic engineer. So I worked through processes. I take information and not just hearsay and so forth to make my decision. So there's going to be differences of opinion. You know, probably lots of articles in the newspaper, why we didn't do this, why didn't we consider that, et cetera, et cetera. But bottom line is, we're going to do the best we can. We've been given certain skills and abilities. We've gone through many experiences in our life. We take all this stuff, shake it up in our heads, and come out with a decision that we believe that is equitable with the restraints that we've been given. You know, we hear of all the things that have taken place in other communities trying to determine these organizations by sub-districts. And we are going to go forward with it and do the best we can. And without belaboring any other thoughts and so forth, I'm going to mention, actually, I changed my mind when listening to some of these comments as to what my third choice was. So I'm not going to even throw that out. But my number one choice was map 104. And map 110.
That's number 2.
Yeah, number 2 is 110.
Third choice.
Like I say, I changed from that to my original thinking.
And I just might add, I don't know if we had mentioned it while Director Lang's looking for that third map. The ranked scoring, we were going to do, the first choice is worth 3 points, second choice 2, third choice is worth 1, and then it's the highest score would indicate a, you know, a greater overall preference. But again, it's just a order of magnitude for the winnowing and focus on the right map.
Yeah, and just a note for those that can't read the tiny numbers, the greener the cell, the higher the number.
The third choice, Chair Huffer, with 107B. And some of the thoughts and reasoning behind my first choice. And again, as I listening to comments and personal observations, that's right. This map does not give us exactly what we're looking for, and that's why I made some changes and so forth. And if I understand correctly, that and then after the next census, all the school districts, the park district, et cetera, will go back over these and make other adjustments and changes and so forth. So nothing's cast in concrete. It's kind of a situation where we'll keep fine tuning it, making it better and better. But, and that also applies to my number one choice. I do apologize for my different situation here. I just had knee replacement surgery a week ago, this past Monday, so this was not on number one on my mind for last week, I'll tell you that. But my number one choice, I think will require some additional fine tuning to increase the Hispanic population. It maintains demarcation lines for existing parks. All of our, I think many of our maps did that. We looked at our parks and, you know, yeah, this park needs to be with this sub-district and so forth. So many of the maps do that. It also shares open space, what boundaries of open space to some of these maps. And that was, in my mind, very important. As some of you know, I'm chair of the Mountains Recreation and Conservation Authority and on the board of the Santa Monica Mountains Conservancy, et cetera. So that's a high priority to me, open space, giving people the opportunity to have access to that even outside. And then, and that was one that allowed all directors to maintain their a seat at the table, to use our past experience, the information that we've gained over the years to contribute to making improvements and under the new guidelines of sub-districts. So I don't know if I totally made sense in all of that information that I was trying to share, but that's it. Enough is enough.
Thank you, Director Lang. We do have a tie for seniority, and I'm going to go with ladies first. So Director Cusworth. Yeah.
Thank you.
So this was hard for me. I'm going to say that my first choice is 109D. Mr. Luca, the lacks that you found in the other two maps is found in 109D, because when I did this, I talked with community members and Westlake Hills was taken out. And we were able to increase the area at Las Casitas. So I like 109D because I think it's a very clean map. It shows a good urban core to the city. It has our multi-family in this area. It has our major parks and retail in this area. This is about as urban as we get. This is walkable Thousand Oaks. It has a very direct north, south, and east, west on this map. So it's very, very easy to read. It's very easy to understand. You have to remember that we're going to, of course, as directors, after this is gone, it's not like one person's from California and one person's from Oklahoma, you know, in the Senate. We're going to still all work together. So we're going to be working for the best of the entire community. But I really felt that 109D was very direct, and I loved this. However, this was a huge dilemma for me because I didn't see map 110 until I saw 109D. And I loved map 110. What I would like to do with map 110 is I would like to have taken the footprint of area 3 in 109D and placed it right in map 110. But there wasn't time because we would have needed the 7 days ahead. So I like both of them equally. The strength of 109D as to 110 is that it removes the Westlake Hills population there and then adds the Conejo Oaks, which I feel gives it a nicer core to the city because it unites the Conejo Creek South Park. As one of our speakers talked about, you don't just have to have a freeway be a dividing line. To me, this is a community. This is my community. So I have always felt that these were equal and should be there. So I'm going to put map 110 as number 2, though I like it equally. I just wish that I could take this part from here and put it in there, because in map 10, we didn't have something quite like this, except for map 101, where now we're uniting our communities of Westlake, Newberry Park, Lynn Ranch, Wildwood, and then the northern communities of Oak Brook and Sunset Hills. And I think that really looks to our communities. I love this map. I just don't like area 3 as well in this map. So either one works for me. And then my last choice would be 104, just as a issue of the directors being able to have a chair, to have a spot. So those are my 3 choices.
Thank you very much, Director Cussworth and Director Nichols.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Chair. This has been a very educational and challenging process. I feel like I've been studying for a final exam, but instead of a 10-week quarter, it's been like a 6-week quarter, and not enough time and never enough information. As I was considering, dividing the community, I thought, we always seem to do better with multiplication and addition than division and subtraction. But division is what we're up against, so we have to deal with that. And before I knew the criteria, I thought, well, oh gosh, that's very simple. We'll just go Newbury Park, Thousand Oaks, and Westlake Village, and we're done. But it wasn't that easy once I started seeing all the criteria that was to be considered. As I hear from many folks, they were asking, well, why are you even going through this? And I tried to explain it. And they said, well, just fight it. We like the park district. It's a great park district. Just keep things the way they are, just leave it the way that it is. I said, well, it would be nice to do that, but that's the easy way. We've got a challenge before us, and we're going to have to meet that challenge. So I tried to explain that, but I tell you, even having gone through this process and learning as much as I have is still a little bit overwhelming, let alone those who haven't been so inclined. Being responsible to our voters, I'm trying to put my personal opinions aside and say, well, what's the best for our community, and whether it be the specific voters that voted for one of us or or others, or just the collection of our entire community as a whole. So I've been trying to keep that in the foremost of my mind as to, well, how do I best address the community as a whole? And so my conclusion was, well, to try and make sure that as many of those criteria are met as possible. And as we look at the 6 and then 9 and then 12 and then 14 maps, it was just like, oh, well, that one's a little bit better than this one. Or just as Director Cussworth would say, well, if I could just put that piece of the puzzle over in this puzzle, it would be a lot better. But then it has this ripple effect with population numbers and everything that goes along with that. And it was very, very difficult. So as I was critiquing the maps and, kind of as many of you have mentioned, you're experienced, you're knowledgeable, you lived in this community for a long time, the communities, the neighborhoods, the parks. I was trying to look at that. Well, where does it seem like this best fits? Whereas we try to put all these criteria together, where does it best fit? I tell you, I spent a lot of time going through this and made a few, as I looked at the various maps as we went along the process, made some comments to our demographers. Well, what about this process? And that's where I learned about this whole ripple effect. I said, well, you just can't, pick up that neighborhood and put it over there, because then you have to switch an equal neighborhood to this district. And it just, it's like a dog chasing its tail. You just never quite get there. But I did provide what I thought was some input based on what to me seemed like, as we've seen with some of these, like the edges weren't quite right, maybe cutting a neighborhood in half, or the parks and the open space. I too was concerned about the open spaces somehow being balanced, and with the parks, but trying to give fair consideration to all the criteria and just say, well, is there anything that we can do to balance this best possible? And I don't know that it's truly possible to balance it exactly as best as we can. I think that's why we do have 14 maps, because the different priorities bubble up in different maps, depending on how you weigh everything. But as I was looking at trying to define on natural barriers, roads, the compactness, the contiguity, communities of interest, all those criteria. It's hard to do that. And I know you talking, Dr. Connolly, about the matrix that you put together. I'm kind of that numbers guy too. I just want to, can I just boil this down to numbers where I can just add it all up and the one that gets the highest number is the winner? Wasn't that easy? It's because then it's a matter of, well, how do you assign the numbers and whose opinion weighs more as far as which criteria? So, I mean, it was an exercise in futility, but I did it nonetheless, just because I do things like that. And to try and come up with what I thought was the map, or in this case, 3, that I thought best addressed the whole criteria spectrum and not just one particular one. So with that long introduction, Mr. Chair, and I've actually been changing as I've gone along here too, and I may even, I guess I'm anxious to see how things play out here. But I was going to go with 111 for my number 1, but I'm hearing some favor for 104. And so I would go with 104. I thought 111 maybe had a little bit better as far as its alignment, as far as with borders. But I can go with 104. Then my next one would be 10C. I thought, well, if you really like 109C, you really like 109D, I could do that one too. If you wanted to switch that one, but I could support 109D as well.
So which one are you choosing as number 2?
I'll say 104, 111, and then 109D.
Thank you.
So yes, it was, like I said, exercise in futility, but we're here to make these types of decisions whether we like to or not. So it falls on us, and I'll take that responsibility as best I can. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Director Nichols. The new kid on the block who probably had no idea what she was getting into a few weeks ago. So Director Buss, you're next.
Okay, well, I actually feel like I have an unfair advantage over all of you. So I've been a residential real estate agent, and it's my job to know every single community in this area. And I've been doing that since 2010 here. So I feel like it gave me a better grasp on how we look at real estate, and in our community, it is very difficult. We sold 1,700 homes in 2022 here. The median home price here is now 1.2 million. So in order to create a low income area is pretty much impossible because of the wealth of this area. So at first I didn't like the fact, I'm going to go through which ones I rank, and then I'll tell you why I like that one. So my first vote, my number 1 is map 110. My second vote is for map 102. And my third vote is for 107B. So originally, when I looked at map 110, it really bothered me that Westlake Hills of North Ranch, which is what it literally says when you drive into the community, was part of this. But then when I looked at it and saw that you also have Shadow Oaks, both of these communities have homes in them that range from 1.3 to about 900,000. So you really are, and then you have the higher density communities of the multifamily. I love the fact, so that got me over the fact that you have Westlake Hills in there when technically Westlake Hills is part of Westlake. So I like this map because you have what we call in real estate, we have TO West, we have TO East, we have Westlake Village, we have Central Thousand Oaks, and we have Newberry Park. So that's where this map to me really made sense as how you would divide up districts. And so I feel that even though District 4, which I end up being in, does incorporate part of Newberry Park, because Newberry Park is too large to be on its own, I felt that worked, just like part of Westlake ends up being in District 3. So when I look at this, the most potential for growth throughout our community and the general plan will be in District 3. And if anyone has been, well, I'm sure you all have been paying attention, but the homes that are being built in District 3 are mostly luxury apartments. And so again, it is extremely difficult for us to continue to have a district that has a low income. That you just can't. I mean, it gets diluted by the fact that this is such a wealthy area and that we have a housing shortage nationwide. So that is why I decided on 110, even though originally I didn't like that Westlake Hills was in it, because Shadow Oaks and Westlake Hills are basically the same price neighborhoods. And so you have all of that together. And that's really how I came about it for that map. I hope that made sense.
Thank you, and welcome to the board. Okay, I put together, when I went through all the maps, I came up with my final choices a week or so ago before we got a flurry of emails. Let me step back for a second. I want to thank all of you again for all of your input. A lot of you spent a lot of time looking at this and not just saying, well, that looks like a good map. Sure, why not? The amount of time and effort that you put into this, the amount of time and effort that our board members put into this is certainly more than commendable. I mean, it's as Director Nichols said, it was a frustrating process. It was a difficult process. There is no perfect map. And as was pointed out, in 9 or 10 years, you have to go through the whole process again, or at least some of the young people will have to go through this again. But in looking at the various maps, said I put together a group of maps that I basically said I can't support these at all. And those were the maps that had separate divisions for each of the 5 directors. Not because I wouldn't dearly love to have a chance to get reelected in 2 more years. I've been on the board for 10 years. I would love to continue, but in looking at those maps, particularly 103 and 104, the division that I would be in, and I don't recall the division number off the top of my head, but I think it's division 4. The division that I would be in basically would run from the northeast corner of Thousand Oaks down through Dos Vientos. And as I told our general manager, about the only time I ever get down to Dos Vientos is if I'm refereeing a game at Dos Vientos Community Park. I don't get down there. And it seemed, just looking at the maps, a rather odd looking division. I also eliminated maps that had 4 directors out of the 5 who were competing for seats. One of the criteria, certainly not the primary criteria, but an important criteria nonetheless, as Director Lang pointed out, is that certainly not 140,000, but whatever the number of eligible voters in our community is, they voted for the 5 of us. These 3 folks this past year, George and I 2 years ago, and that has to count for something. But to remove, or to say that George and I have to run against each other, and that Marissa and Doug, or Marissa and Nellie, or whatever, there were several different combinations and permutations, just didn't make sense to me. So I was looking for a fairly compact map. I was looking for a map that made sense in terms of relative compactness, which is one of the criteria that our consultants has told us is important. Looking at maps that enable most, if not all, the directors to have a chance to retain seats. There's certainly no guarantee that we'll be reelected if we run, but if 2 of us are in the same district, one of us is going to lose. I tried to convince George to move to a different area, but he unfortunately, we live 3 blocks apart, so it makes it really difficult. Yeah. So anyway, those are the basic criteria I was looking at. Then I was looking at several of the maps, and it struck me that, and I don't know how many years ago, the Park District put together their master plan. And I believe when the master plan was first formed, I believe there were probably 5 divisions or 5 planning zones. Darn, if we only kept 5 planning zones, the decision would have been really easy. They would, these 5 planning zones, each of us gets one of the zones. Unfortunately, they added Dos Vientos as a separate zone, what the district calls Zone 6. But in comparing map 110 to the master plan, there was a lot of overlap between what is on our master plan from years and years ago and what is on map 110. So after eliminating some maps, going through the maps that I had not eliminated, my first choice was map 110. My second choice, originally I was leaning toward 109B, but Director Cussworth pointed out some of the benefits to 109D. So 109D would be my second choice. And then my third choice is map 102, which I don't think anybody's mentioned. So anyway, those are my 3 choices, 110. Oh, you did, I'm sorry.
Director Busted.
Director Bust did. Sorry. Can't read my own handwriting. That's why we have a computer up there. So with that, looking at the numbers up there, I mean, there are 2 maps that stand out. Well, 3 maps. 104 has 7 points. Right behind it is 109D, and then 110 has 10 points. I'm not going to, at this point, it's a little premature to ask for any kind of action on a final map, but I would like to get, is it possible to get the board to agree that all but those 3 maps be eliminated from consideration? I'm limiting everything but 104, 109D, and 110.
Well, I see a couple, number 1 votes for a particular map that you're throwing out.
There were no, all the first, there were the votes for first place were 104, 109D, 104, 110, 110. So there's 3 maps that had first place votes.
They're all there, the ones with 3. 2 for 110, 1 for 109, and 2 for 104.
You're looking for the number 3s, not the number 1.
Yeah, the number 3 means that it was someone's number 1 choice. Very
Yeah, the
counterintuitive.
numbering, the only reason they did the numbering that way was so that the highest number is the top of the list. Could have gone vice versa, 1, 2, 3, and then the lowest number would have been. But then you have people that get no votes or maps that get no votes, and that complicates it. So.
Okay, well, I appreciate you explaining.
Yeah,
That's not the normal interpretation would be in my mind, but
You can blame Tom. I mean, Tom, you know, he does spreadsheets, so he probably came up with this anyway, so. Okay, so we've narrowed the choices down to 3 maps. And I'm gonna go back in the same order that we were in before. Of those 3 maps, you didn't erase those, did you? Oh, okay, all right. Of those 3 maps, has everybody written them down or well, okay, y'all. Hey, I'm deaf, I'm blind, you know, what can I do? Sorry. Okay, so of those 3 maps, Director Lang, which would be your first choice and your second choice?
I'm changing. I'm gonna say 110, number 1.
Okay.
And 104, 2,
Okay,
and that's opposite because previously as ranking is 104 is my number one. but-
right. Okay, thank you.
So I'm going to say 110 as my first choice and 109. But I really do love I really do love throwing that out.
Okay. All right, Director Nichols.
I'll do 104 first and 109D second.
Okay, Director Buss.
I'll do 110 as my number one and 109D as my number two.
And I also will do 110 as my first and 109D as my second. So we have one of the maps out of a possible 10 points. One of the maps has gotten 8. 109D has 4, 104 has 3. God, so close. What I'm gonna suggest is that because they're so close, but we have to eliminate one, we don't have to, but I'm gonna choose that we eliminate. And I apologize, but I'm gonna eliminate 104. And of the remaining two choices, either 110 or 109D, Director Lang. Thank you. Director Cusworth, Director Nichols.
Still like 109D, sorry.
You don't have to apologize. You don't have to apologize. Director Buss.
Can I make a statement about 110 versus 109D? So Caneo Oaks is one of the most expensive neighborhoods in our area, and I know that it's great that it's right there by the park, but you have homes in there that sell over 2 million versus if we're trying, to Westlake Hills and Shadow Oaks, which you cap out at about 1.3. So it makes it a little bit more of a evenly divided housing values, if you should say, in 110, if that makes you feel a little better.
Oh, no, I know exactly what the
Okay.
housing prices are in that
Okay.
area.
Okay.
I wasn't looking at just housing prices. I was looking at neighborhood and not cutting parks in half. And since I've lived in that neighborhood, not Caneo Oaks, but just on the other side of the freeway, is that the bad side of the freeway that I live on? I don't know.
No.
But I
There is no
consider
bad side
that
in Thousand
all
Oaks.
one neighborhood. So I was looking at a neighborhood, not just on how much a house costs. So that was my criteria there. I wasn't just looking at house price. I was looking at neighborhood. So, but no, I'm well aware of the disparity in the housing prices, but that wasn't my only consideration.
Okay.
But I did vote for 110,
Yeah, no, I was just
even though I love 109.
there, I mean,
I really loved it, but I'm just kind of going with what I think will be good, and we don't have time to switch those two, but we'll go on.
so I'm 110 and then 109.
Okay, well, you only get one vote at this
Oh,
point. so
110.
Thank
Sorry.
you. And I also am voting for 110.
And the winner is?
I will now entertain a motion to choose a map for this process. Director Lang.
Thank you, and I appreciate the opportunity to make the motion. Over the years, making many motions, and the one that's will have the biggest impact on our great district is this particular resolution and so forth. So I would make a motion that Board of Directors select map 110 as its best map in this process.
And I believe since this is being done as a resolution that we do need to, the action needs to be in the form of resolution.
Right.
And I will interject as we're making this motion, we have a resolution. The resolution has a couple blanks and maybe either Dr. Levitt or Chris want to chime in. Obviously, selecting the map is the one we've been focusing on, but you're also going to direct the divisions that are up for election in 2024 and 2026. I think the map is kind of a natural solution there. you would have, I think, divisions, I don't remember the numbers, the one with.
Division one, the one that is vacant is Division 5. So it probably would have to be Division 1 and Division 5, I believe, would be up for election in 24.
Yes, I think that's right. So I want to get our consultants to verify that would be the right order. 2024 would be.
So we're pulling it up here, but yes, it is straightforward on the sequencing on the map. Divisions 2 and 4, or sorry, 2 and 5 would be up in 2024, and 1, 3, and 4 would be up in 2026. And this would not cut any terms short or allow everyone to run on their natural election cycle.
Got it. Thank you.
So yeah, so for clarity, I'm looking at page 34 of the packet, item 5 in the resolution term of office. So we're plugging in divisions 2 and 5 into 5B. And in 5C, we're plugging in 1, 3, and 4. So that'll be the order for the division elections.
Okay, so is that all the information we need for that? In that
That's
case,
all you
Director
need.
Lang, I would ask you to
I will.
give us a resolution.
It is my honor. I recommend that we adopt resolution number 011923-A, selecting the director's division map for use of in the November 2024 elections, and therefore completing the transition from at-large voting to division-based voting. And where do I interject map 110?
It's
In the resolution.
included in the.
You will.
So to clarify that motion, that it would be map 110 as attached to the packet. And it would be in section 5 of the resolution, divisions 2 and 5 would be up in 2024. And
That's not correct. It's actually 1 and 5.
oh, is it?
1 and 5 in 2024.
Consultants verify that for us. 1 and 5. I'm sorry, I wrote down 2 and 5. 1 and 5.
Yes,
1
yeah,
and
I believe
5.
we just said that on the map, it's 1 and 5. That is correct.
And
The
then,
one-
good, I'm glad we clarified that. And in November 2026, it would be divisions 2, 3, and 4.
2, 3, and 4.
Okay, so we have a motion to adopt the resolution. Do we have a second? Thank you. Could we have a reading of the resolution, please?
Resolution number 011923-A, a resolution of the Conejo Recreation and Park District Board of Directors changing from an at-large election system to a by-division election system for electing members of the Board of Directors, commencing with the board elections in November 2024.
Thank you very much. We have a motion and a second. I have to ask, because it's part of Robert's Rules of Orders, are there any further questions or comments? In case not, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries unanimously. Thank you, board and public. Thank you very much for all of your input.
I think it's a
Oh, public hearing is closed. Thank you.
formalities.
Yes. All right. You all are welcome to stay for the balance of the meeting if you'd like. I mean, we've probably taken up most of your meeting anyway. All the good shows are already gone. So let me get my agenda back here. So there we go. Okay, so we are on item 8. We don't have any items for discussion, do we? I didn't think so. 9A, confirmation of board appointments and assignments. Mr. General Manager.
Thank you, Chair Hopper, members of the board. We spoke about this during the last meeting, and you guys did a great job of kind of organizing the board's workload and balancing them among the committees. So I think the item in front of you is reflective of our last board meeting discussion for your committee assignments.
Thank you. Do you have any questions of the General Manager? If not, I will entertain a motion. Director Nichols.
Yes, I recommend that the board confirm, modify, or add committee assignments as appropriate, which we have done, and we're leaving them as in the report. So we'll just follow staff recommendation.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
Director Lang, any comments or questions? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. 9B, SCI Consulting Group.
Yeah.
Normally this would be Andrew, but
Yeah, Andrew said I'd be okay if I said that he was really, he felt really, not only was he very sick with the flu, but he felt horrible that, you know, as the new administrator, he's having to miss a meeting so early, but he is not well. I spoke to him on the phone and I ordered him not to be here for all of our sakes. But this item was prepared by Andrew, but I certainly reviewed it and understand it and concur with the staff recommendation. As you know, we use both SCI Consulting and Wildan to do our 3 different assessment districts. SCI has been doing our district-wide one since its inception 20 years ago. And Wildan has been doing the smaller ones for Dos Vianos and Rancho Conejo since those were formed. So we've kind of had the same 2 doing the same work all these years. Renewal time is up for both, and obviously that process needs to happen pretty soon. And we have been very pleased with SCI's services and communicated with them about a cost savings opportunity if the SCI had the all 3. And so we would be saving about $3,000 a year over the current 2 consultant contracts that we have. So it is only about $39,000 a year. It's a 5-year contract. That's a little less than having the 2 separate contracts. And this would continue to have an assessment engineer do the work necessary to do our 3 assessments, which in this most recent year generates 2 million district-wide, 127,000 out of Rancho Conejo and 715,000 out of Dos Vianos. So managing that assessment process, all the parcels is the work that the consultants do that staff doesn't have to do in order to collect those assessments. So with that, I'm available for questions.
do we have any questions for the general manager? Really? Wow. All right. If not, I will entertain a motion.
I'll give a motion that we recommend and authorize the general manager to accept this proposal from SCI Consulting Group.
Thank you. Can I get a second?
I'll second.
Director Buss, any questions or comments? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Any
Aye.
Opposed? Very much. Carried unanimously. 10 reports and announcements. Does anybody? I'm sorry, my microphone's not on. Does anybody have any questions or comments about items 10A through 10F? Director Buss.
Sorry, it has like feedback.
Oh.
Okay. I have a question about the youth outreach activity report. When I was reading that over, I was curious why Thousand Oaks High School has 2 youth outreach people and they also have 3 days a week versus Newbury Park High School and Westlake High School only have 1 outreach person and they only get 1 day a week. I mean, aren't the high schools? Yeah, see, I don't know.
I'll turn my microphone off. Speak loud. Actually, that's a very good question, and I do not have an answer, so I will look into that. But I believe that that Thousand Oaks has asked for female representation at the school, and the Crystal works at that school. So she kind of tries to cover more, but I can double check on why that is. It just might be the load, but Thousand Oaks actually does have a meeting in the park and Westlake.
Yeah, that's what was
I thought
confusing.
that was gonna be your question.
And
I was
I-
ready for that one.
Well, I read in the report, it said that it wasn't approved until November. So I was like, oh, okay, that's why the numbers are lower than the others. But I'm like, why is there 3 days and they get 2? And yeah, I was just
Yeah,
curious.
The school asked for it, we did a partnership with the school, so but I
Okay.
will get clarification.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments on any of those items? If not, we'll move along to department reports. And in Andrew's stead, General Manager will be reporting on Parks Division.
Well, I don't wanna, the one thing I can kind of mention right now, I know that senior center fences come down in the back, so, that's exciting. The teen center, I think, is like days away, it's so close, and no, I don't know. The event That's happening on March 10th, is happening on March 10th. But I think getting the teen center final is still ongoing, and that is a big project. So on the parks side, parks and planning side, that's the report that I have here. But then, I was at the senior center, the fence is down in the background, you can exercise out there now. People, I didn't actually do that. Imagine.
Do we have any questions of the Parks Division? Just a comment, I too this morning got out there to check out. I also did not use it, but it is pretty cool facility back there. So I hope somebody used. Marissa, how about you? No, you're not eligible for this team. Yeah, I know. It's outside.
Yeah, so in the backyard, the back of the senior center where the old putting green area was and some landscaping, they did some really nice, very hardy improvements kind of for like wall bench seating, and then a bunch of outdoor exercise equipment, and even just that spongy surface, the crumb rubber surface for just like people that want to lay down and stretch and stuff outdoors. So kind of outdoor yoga mats or just outdoor stretching and stuff around the equipment. So it's a really cool facility.
I was just wondering, because some people don't like to get cold. So I was wondering if it's indoors, they'd be more like that, but we'll see.
We'll see. Okay, moving along to the Recreation Division, Ms. Callis.
Indoors for the seniors, we have lots of yoga classes and dance classes, all indoors.
And I was just talking, because all of our sports equipment that we have in the parks is great, but it's all outdoors.
Yeah.
And if it's cold outside, because I personally know that seniors get cold. It's a little personal. But on a nice day, I'm sure they'll be out.
Do not have any additional information based on.
Do we have any questions for Ms. Callis? I think everyone's anxious to go home. Management Services.
I will keep it brief because everyone's anxious to go home. Just really quick, we're wrapping up the CRPD audit and we've scheduled the Finance and Audit Committee. So that's next week. And then we'll be coming to the board with the full report. And on the MRCA side, we're also doing 3 audits right now. So I'm in audit land. So have kind thoughts for me. And with that, I'm available for questions.
Do we have any questions for the lady in audit land?
I just hope there's a way out.
She gets a silver star at the end of her duty here.
Okay, and General Manager's report.
Yes, I too will be brief. I first want to just say how much I appreciate Melissa for kind of spearheading this when we received a letter and a love note in September from an attorney, and I said, Melissa, this is going to be your baby. So she's had a lot of work, addressing public comments, making sure that the right kind of information was getting to and from consultants and that kind of thing. So thank you for that work. And even way more importantly, staff honestly had no recommendation and no idea how that was all going to go down. And I can't say how grateful I am to work for this board and for the 5 of you, because that was a hard thing you just did. And you did it with grace and civility and cooperation. And it was just, I appreciate what you guys just did. That was hard and it was done well. So thank you guys for doing that. That's it.
Any questions for the General Manager? If not, we'll go to Director's reports and I'll start to my left with Director Cusworth.
I'm sure I did something. You know what I mainly did for the last couple of weeks? I looked at maps. I looked at maps and I analyzed maps and I looked at boundaries and I sent emails and I talked to Justin and Doug and I talked to Jim and I talked to my husband saying, do you want to look at maps? And he very nicely sat and looked at maps. So I did a lot of that. I think I did some other things, but if I did, I don't remember. I was very consumed with the maps. So I'll leave it at that.
All right, Director Nichols.
Yes, I too am in a post-map syndrome right now, but worthwhile nonetheless. See, January 10th, I had a California Association of Rec and Park District Conference Committee meeting. And I learned that RGM is going to be having a special presentation at the conference. somebody by the name of Tom Hare. He's supposed to be giving a presentation.
No, bring
So-
your rotten eggs. Or your
So if you
tomatoes.
want to listen, I have no idea. This guy obviously has very little experience with RGM, so I can't imagine he could be having anything of volumes to say, but we'll see. He's a very new employee, apparently. And then yesterday, we had a California Association of Rec and Park District Board of Directors meeting, which was not a whole lot on the agenda, but we did get a copy of our legislative report, which I forwarded some information to the general manager. And that was the governor's budget information, basically kind of spelling out how that 22.5 million, billion, trillion, I kind of forget it all now, shortfall is going to affect various entities. And of course, all the money that they were giving away last year, now we've got a shortfall. So they're starting to redline everything and rather than just telling the different departments or agencies that they're not getting it, they're setting up triggers. So it's just like, well, you're not going to get it unless this, or things. So it's kind of like, dangling it in front of you and you just don't know if you're going to get it or not. So that's kind of, we learned that. And there will be some things that affect, rec and park districts. Did understand from Ms. Smith that the park projects that we have underway for the playgrounds is not affected because that came out in the previous budget year. So we're okay there, but there will be a lot of districts where they were anticipating grants and funding, and now that's just going to be numbers on a piece of paper, and they'll probably never see it. So that's what we're up against for the year. So yeah, that's my report for as what it's worth.
Thank you, Director Nichols. Director Buss.
I went to the Wellness Fest at the Senior Center, and that was my first time going. I thought it was really well ran. It looked like it was really well attended. I haven't been there previously, but there was a lot of people there. And I was really impressed with the classes. I really liked the benefits of the CBD. I used that in Rotary for the fine session today. Thank you.
Director Lang.
Well, I've been occupied on another topic for the last week plus. And I didn't do as much on the maps that I normally would have. But it wasn't, a priority in my life as a CRPD director, but it was just a situation where another part of my personal life took a little priority over my elected position.
Are you going to use unconscious as an excuse not to do, all that work?
And the report, I'm doing well. The home care nurse, today was her last day for a visit. They made a decision and I don't need them anymore. And the physical therapy I have next week, and that's it. And I'm just very pleased with, and not only the support from, family and friends and so forth. You can't imagine missionaries down in Africa and South Americans and so forth, but it's just the fact that people and directors here and staff that have expressed their best wishes, and I appreciate that. Nothing else to report.
Gee, normally you have 10 or 20 meetings in a
Chuck, gets a thought like that entered my mind, we all go to many meetings. This board is the tops, and listening to Doug and everybody else and their participation in events, I can't imagine there's another board of a government organization that does as much as we do and contributes as much to their community as we do. But one of the things I was thinking of, sorry, when we turn in our sheets, we count the meetings. How many of these people would be able to take time out of their life? There's 3 times I've attended 19 meetings in a month. My average is 12 meetings per month. And I just think that people elect us to represent them, and they're being very well represented. And who knows what's going to happen in the future. We'll just pray that, things keep going the right direction with the right people and with a great staff that guides us and gives us the information to make our decisions. So anyway, that thought came to mind listening to these individuals. Do they really know, what we do, what we've done? Okay,
Thank you.
that's
George.
enough, George.
Thank you. I'm glad that Director Buss mentioned it because it's been all of 24 hours and I'd forgotten that I was at the Wellness Fest as well. And it was really well done, well put on. Looked like they had a good turnout. They had lots of vendors from all kinds of different disciplines. So, and it was interesting that they pointed out that they haven't missed a year of that, even with COVID. They managed, one year was a drive-by, another year was outdoors. And so the folks at the Global Center and the CSVP folks are, they just sort of like the Energizer Bunny, they just keep ticking. In addition, I started the tax training program for the CSVP tax program last week. And we're opening up for tax preparation on whatever the first Monday in February is. And I have to brag, I actually passed the test so I can do returns again this year. So,
I'm not surprised, not surprised.
but I sweated. I mean, I've been doing it for 5 or 6 years and I sweated up, but it's not that difficult, but oh God, a test. So anyway, I want to thank my fellow board members for all of the work you put into tonight's process in deciding on the divisions. I think we all were spending lots and lots of time and angst over this. And I'm really pleased with, how we came together in fairly short order and as I said initially, we may not all agree on any given map or little tweaks here, little tweaks there, but you accomplished it and thank you for doing that. And I also have to thank Jim and Melissa for all the work they put in and for holding my hand through this whole process. They're probably getting tired of my phone calls and emails. So thank you both very much. Yes.
Chair Huffer and I were at the Global Center at a lecture together. We both forgot that on the national park, history of the national park.
Yeah, that was
So
fascinating.
that was very interesting.
Yeah.
Wanted to go back, but couldn't make it.
Oh, it was very educational. Yes, it was a lecture about the history of the national parks.
Mhm.
So kind of fits in with our parks, our little park kind of going in with.
A little bigger scale.
Yeah. the
That's
national
why we have a 5-member board to remind each other what it is
Yeah,
we're
what it is
doing
we've done.
during the month. So anyway, moving right along, item 12, request for status reports and items for subsequent agendas. Does anybody have anything? No. Is there any public waiting online? Oh, too bad.
Okay, wait a second.
Okay,
real quick,
please
yeah.
tell me we do not need another executive closed session.
We don't.
Oh, the direct,
So I do have things I want to discuss, but we're going to be having a retreat. Is that kind of in the works?
Yes, it is. We're hoping maybe the next meeting. We're hoping maybe the next meeting. So if you guys are, the next board meeting. Unless you guys want to do it on a weekend, but
Well, the board meetings, we usually just come early, right?
yeah. So we were gonna poll you guys to see if you could come early. We weren't 100% sure next meeting, but next meeting works.
It wouldn't
I
be
can see in
here.
Marissa's eyes, she's wondering if she needs to pack a
Yeah.
bag for this.
No, it's just.
we're going to Hawaii,
No,
Marissa, so
No. We're not focusing on action items. No, we're not focusing on action items. We're just kind of having a board meeting, just kind of talk about priorities, our strategic plan,
Oh.
kind of like that kind of thing.
all right.
That was like a meeting.
I said the exact same thing. I said, oh, retreat, are we going to a hotel for my first one? What are we doing?
Yeah, I was like, oh, are we doing the whole week?
Yeah, the city can do that, but not the park district. So anyway, there is no executive session, right?
No executive session.
In that case, I would really like to thank Cameron and Mark for all your help, all the Zoom
Yes,
stuff.
yes.
So thank you, gentlemen. Do appreciate it. And meeting is adjourned.
Okay.